So in advance of the discussion here, I asked each of these artists to send some music so that we can kind of spark the discussion. And because we've heard whistles from Gaslamp Killer and we've heard some music from Beats Antique, but I think we should start with Von Kiss. And first we're going to hear a song. I asked them all to send a song that to them represents this theme of global bass. And it's a very fluid kind of theme. So I think it's going to be fun to hear what each one of them kind of feels is representative of that from their own catalog. So first, I think if we're ready, we're going to hear one from Von Kiss, and then we're going to introduce and talk to her for a bit. So let's hear it. Here we go. A little snippet. We're probably going to play little snippets of each of these because we have to move through a lot, but can you introduce, let's hear, first off, a round of applause for Von Kiss and her music.
Thank you.
Can you introduce that song? What was that?
That's actually a remix that I just somewhat finished up. It's actually, every time I listen to it, there's always things I want to add to it, but it's a remix for an artist named Maluka Mala, which I don't know if anybody here knows, the Dominican princess, yes. It's a song called Mala that she made, and she was looking for artists to remix, to send out a special remix EP, and this was my remix that I had done for her, but it still hasn't been released or anything like that, so there still might be some changes made to it, but I took the track and I really wanted to give it kind of like a super hyped up dembo kind of vibe. I love Jersey Club, I love fast beats, I love banda, I love like Latin tropical beats, and I love a good bass line, so just like a pump-in track, so that's what I did with it. Thank you.
And was this something, this kind of sound, was it something that you heard in the context of being a listener or a dancer at a club, or did you hear it on record? Like how were you attracted to that kind of vibe before you started producing it?
All of the above. Like I've been a DJ for 10 years, and I've been a dancer for since I don't even remember how old I was, like 8 years old. My mom was teaching me how to do the Cabbage Patch, but I just love to dance, and I became a DJ because I want to make people dance, and I want to see people enjoying themselves on the dance floor. It's not always about like, can I play the coolest song? It's more like, what is gonna fill the dance floor? What's gonna have people jumping up and down, sweating, and like super excited and sore the next day? So that's my drive, and that's my inspiration as a DJ and as a producer.
You received the Medal of Valor then. We've bestowed it upon you.
Thank you.
And so when you heard the original version of that, what was sparked in your mind, and how did you decide to go that direction? Was there something, did you kind of see this kind of vision on the horizon of this is what it can become?
It's kind of, because actually the first take I did with that track, it was different, and then I knew I wanted to give it like a flip into like the dembo edit. So what I did is I had kind of a pump-in track where it wasn't even so tropical as much as it was just like jump-in club style, and then I switched into a dembo beat, and I half-timed it, and when I played it for Maluka, she was like, that, like, you need to make the whole track like this. So that's when I like completely redid it and kind of sprinkled more of the dembo from the beginning, like, to the end.
Well, it works.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So we're going to circle around. We're going to hear some more music from each. And let's hear it for Von Kiss right there, for the beautiful remix. And next up, we have the Gaslamp Killer. Can you guys will welcome the Gaslamp Killer? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we go, Gaslamp Killer in the place. And he sent a song, and we're going to hear that now, and then we'll talk a bit about that. Woo! Gaslamp Killer with Amir Yagmai Nissim. So where'd that come from? What was that birthed from?
My grandfather, rest in peace, Nisim Ben Shushan, he's from Istanbul, Turkey, and raised my father with, Mediterranean music in the house, and his mother was from Syria, also rest in peace, and she played the darbuka, and so when I grew up, my dad would be whistling and singing and always humming some kind of tune in between screaming obscenities in Spanish on the phone at all his clients. And I just kind of picked up on that vibe from growing up in my house, and then I found out about Turkish psychedelic music and how like Jimi Hendrix made its way to Turkey, and all of a sudden they plugged their instruments in and a whole world of heavy rock came out of the Mediterranean and Middle East. And I just fell in love with the Turkish rock sound, and I wanted to replicate it the best I could, and I found one player who could do it, and his name is Amir Yagmai, and his family's from Iran, and he studied Middle Eastern music his whole life, classically trained viola player, and now he's a heavy metal guitar player, so you never know what the hell is gonna happen in your life. So
but again, Los Angeles, I mean, Tehrangeles, we have the largest, Iranian, Persian, population outside of the country. And maybe only here could you have that connection, and your family moving from the Middle East to Mexico City and coming to Los Angeles. And I mean, these things are all blending together, and that track is, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, it really does encapsulate these kind of moving borders and fluidity of life, but you were able to harness it and make something really new and different with it.
Well, we definitely took the main guitar lick from Zafer Dilek song, who's like the Turkish guitar god, and then we took a bass line from Arif Sag song. So, I'm a hip hop dude. I sample and put mixtapes together and collage music. That's my favorite thing to do, but when you have live players in a city like this with so much knowledge and so much soul and style, you can, really take your influences and bring them to life with a new palette. It's fun. It's fun to work with people like Amir.
And you've brought it out of the studio to live, the Gaslamp Killer experience with a large ensemble. So it's kind of moving out of the box of being in a box and a computer or electronic device and really making it. But was the first kind of sketch something that was there, in a machine?
We knew that this song was going to be live, but with the help of Daedalus, we gave it some boom, and we put the kick mic way closer to the kick pedal, or to the kick drum, and Daedalus has this compression technique that he does, and he's had many over the years, but the way it bumps is because of Daedalus helping us engineer it and bringing it from a live sounding in, out of the box with the live sound, but still able to pump in a club with that kick. It's just an engineer secret that I have no idea about, because my shit sounds like it came out of a 4-track tape player, and I'm happy with that. That's always fine with me.
That's what friends are for.
Exactly. This collaborator, that's how I met Daedalus, is because of this guy, Frosty.
So now we're going to move on. We heard a bit. Big thanks. Let's hear it for GLK and for his amazing tune, Nissim. So we're going to hear one again. We're moving on to now Beats Antique, and they also sent a tune, and we're going to hear that right now and talk to them. Beats Antique. The gentlemen are right here. You've met them already, but so what was the origin of that tune?
That was actually a song that was generated out of a sketch in Machine, and coming up with that bass line in Massive. And then I just want to say that a musician who played most of those parts, that baritone sax doubled with the synth bass and clarinet and stuff, he's here. Mr. Sylvan Carton is here. Just want to give respect to him. Yeah, right there. He's a big part of our sound with doubling the Barry top end with the low end sub frequencies and going for that kind of approach with taking the tops of acoustic instruments and adding the synth lows is like something we've been experimenting with a long time. So that's actually how that track started, that bass line. And then, that Killer Bee sample is like just this random rap battle on YouTube. I just cut up and spliced. Oh, Killer Bee, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's similar for Willie. Like, I mean, I came from hip hop, but I also like play instruments and stuff, and like, you know, when you take a live drum kit sound or a live instrument sound and you need to go play in a club, you need to actually hit the sound system, because if you don't, it sounds really weak. So, you know, we've learned techniques of like, you know, just taking the acoustic principles of a sound and then taking the electronic things that make the sounds really hit and just like combining those and trying to like come up with that formula, you know. And it's different for every song and it's different for every track. And
But that melody is influenced by Turkish music. Like we're fully influenced. And I played the saws, so it's really actually we play that song live. I play that on the saws, that melody. So we love Middle Eastern music and Turkish music, and that's a huge influence on our sound. So that's where that that melody came from.
Is there having a group, you know, and you know, you guys collaborate with a lot of folks, but you guys, you know, are producing together. Is there more often than not, you know, one specific sort of seed that starts it off? Are you, everybody kind of has their skill set, you know, but like, are you like the drum man, and you're, you know, is there something that you guys kind of have a position within this collaboration?
Well, it changes all the time. Like, he's definitely the beat man. I'm definitely the antique guy. I play the melodies. He's the beat dude. And Zoe, who's not here, who's our third member, is an amazing producer, and she's a collage artist and always producing in Ableton and coming up with a lot of stuff as well. But it's each of us bringing sketches, really, and then each of us adding and developing those sketches.
so when we were saying we're like addicted to this stuff, like we really are, and I think every day I basically wake up and go get my coffee from the awesome coffee shop next to our studio, and then I just walk next door and just open up stuff and just start making. You know, and some of it is totally horrible. But sometimes...
The coffee or the music?
No, the coffee's actually always really good, and if you guys had Alchemy coffee, you would understand, but unfortunately it's only in Berkeley right now. But no, I mean, sometimes the things you make aren't that great, but then you can play it for someone else and they can say, oh wait, I like this part and this part and this part, instead of, you know. But sometimes, you know, something comes up that's just like, oh, this is sick. We gotta make something out of it, and it can come from almost anything. I mean, it can come from just an idea of a music video or a dance that Zoe wants to do that's like kind of pushes us in some direction, you know, something that one of us brings to the table pushes us in a direction, and then inevitably the other two people think it should go into a different place. And so then it kind of does all of that.
Has the kind of brain-body barrier with making music kind of been erased or become smaller these days? I mean, from the moment that you're sitting in a coffee shop or you're driving in your car, you're sitting in the kitchen, has that become a lot more rapid because of the tools available at your fingertips?
I mean, as a producer, I've been experimenting with production for about 5 years, and a lot of stuff, you know, can be categorized as in my opinion, not good enough. But I think I'm also my own worst critic, and I'm surrounded by such talented, amazing producers, especially here in LA. It's just like an endless sea. There's 14-year-old kids that are just killing it. And I'm like, I think we all know that, but I think just getting the discipline to physically get in the studio and make something happen, because literally something is better than nothing, and you just never know who will hear it, who will like it, and who will hear it and give you positive feedback and criticism, where you can just kind of continue to build and grow as an artist and as a producer. And it's, yeah.
And I want to play, those were very inspiring words, and your music is an artifact of that kind of idea, and you're putting it all out there. I mean, this is music that I think all three of you, it's music that is mixed for big system. I mean, it's mixed for big sound, but are you also, people are listening frequently here, but they also are listening when you're performing or when they're in a fortunate circumstance like here with these big speakers, and really being able to hear that kind of full intention. What is the kind of balance when you're going into something like, making a new song, and you do want it, say, to be a dance song, but you realize that other people are going to enjoy it or hear it on a different device? Is there something that you're consciously doing, or the way you're approaching it that is shifting because of listening habits?
I mean, I know producers who, like, for example, DJ Javier Estrada from Monterrey, I met him years ago when I went on a tour in Mexico with Six Block, and he produced on a laptop, which it wasn't an Apple, it was, I don't know what brand, but he didn't have studio monitors. He had these tiny little earbuds that was his source of sound to hear what his tracks would sound like. And I'm like, if he can do it, and his tracks were phenomenal, and they still are, they're amazing, then there's no excuse, you know what I mean? Like, you can have the fanciest studio, the best speakers, and this crazy mixing board and all this, but if it sounds good in some little tiny earbuds, you have done something right. So, yeah.
I want to hear, actually, there's a tune. So the next kind of question that I asked to these panelists, these artists here, was a question of what song kind of opened their ears to the possibilities of global bass, and what was kind of maybe a gateway to them to kind of open their minds to this kind of sound. And maybe we can cue up Von Kiss's tune, which is for the second question, and hear this tune. So what is that? What did we just hear?
Okay, so I grew up in the Bay Area, and I listened to Wild 107. Okay, it's now Wild 94.9, but I grew up when it was OG, and that song played on the radio as a kid, and it has this fusion of like banda, which is like very Mexican, very upbeat dance music, and then it has this Latin house flavor, so it's very like four to the floor, pumping track, and then it has these little kind of like strings that are like, you could use them in like bachata now, and like almost that ATB sample. I don't know if you could hear it in there, but just this kind of like fusion of different like vibes, and it's at 135 BPM, so I love fast music, and it definitely hit like all these targets, which I can play that song today in my sets, and it'll be a bridge from like kind of an EDM vibe to let's get Latin with it, and then like you will just see the energy change in the room, and like all the Latinos are like party time, like, and then it's on and popping. But yeah.
When you're making your original music, are you channeling these kind of, and this is for anyone too, like in general, are you guys channeling these kind of music memories, these things that you've brought with you in the past, these kind of feelings of, nostalgia or like epiphanies as you're approaching something new? What are you bringing with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that our music memory, our ears have a memory to it, and it activates something inside of you that just like smells, And so, I mean, for me personally, I just like sit down and play something and feel like once I feel something, then it turns into something that I remember, something that I felt, and something that I want to create, that I want to do something on that. And it's just triggered by things, for sure.
I would say for me, like when creating music and thinking about where it's coming from and in memory, it's for me, I always try to see if it passes the shiver test, the involuntary, nervous shiver that I think we've all experienced. And if it doesn't really have that, then I'm not, and that's like not, I don't think like everything has to have that, but that's what I'm going for.
Well, let's hear the tune that beats Antique so we can actually directly connect it, and we're going to move it into something that inspired them and influenced
Hopefully
them.
this passes the shiver test. Shit.
That's a song called Tit for Tat by Tipper. Dave Tipper is this like ridiculous producer who creates sounds out of anything that he wants to and commands those sounds with a beauty that is really hard to find. And that sort of like, I think for me personally, I can't speak for David on this, but for me it kind of pulls out the music nerd in me, and because it's in like 3, and it just feels like it makes you feel a little different. It also, provides like this slower, beautiful progression through it. And then just the found sounds, it's like, it's not necessarily what we shape our music after or anything. Like it wasn't like the old thing that we listened to. I mean, I could play, 30 hours of that stuff. But it's just somebody who encapsulates, he's from the UK, so a lot of his music is kind of clubby and stuff at a point, but he made this album that was just absolutely just tactilely beautiful and simple, yet really incredibly difficult and skillful.
Some gooey, elastic bass in there, so wild. So Shiver Test, I actually saw Gaslamp here a couple days ago, and I mentioned the song that he sent to me, and I said that I loved it, and he actually got goosebumps on his arm just talking about it. So we're going to hear this, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. This is Gaslamp's pick. So tell us a little bit about that song.
I made this when I was 15, back in Arkansas with my daddy and the jaw harp. And we had a one-legged dog out in the back. And it had the worst cough, man. This thing was whooping all night. I had to beat it to death one day because it just annoyed me so much.
That gives me goosebumps too. All over.
Our outhouse was broken, and Mama told me I had to go take it.
So when I met you, you were, and you still are, I mean, like, deeply digging for psych and deep library cuts and jazz and just music with an air of mystery, I think. That one, definitely, there's a big vibe in that one. That's Galt McDermott, Cathedral. Do you remember the first time you heard that song?
I think the first time I heard that song was after I discovered Ripped Open by Metal Explosions. I went looking for all of the Galt McDermott music I could find, and the Hair soundtrack and things and stuff, and all these different records that I was finding from this amazing Canadian man were all moody soundtrack music, and he was like the Canadian answer to Ennio Morricone or someone like that just brings such a rich, wonderful sound with his music, and there's always a narrative in every single song, whether he wrote it to a visual or not. You can just pictures emerge in your head, and that's the kind of music that I love, that takes you on an instant journey and makes you feel like you're in a film, you know? That's the type of shit that transports you right away.
What is your kind of greatest hope for when you're making music? What would you hope that music to do for the listeners?
I think a lot of the music that I've made over the years has been extremely cerebral music. I don't intend people to dance to it. I think about all the trips on the school bus that I took as a kid. I had a 40-minute bus ride to this horrible, horrible school, and I would escape into my headphones, and that's how I listened to music. And the music that I listened to at that age changed my life, and I didn't even know about a sub. I didn't know you could produce that frequency like we were just discussing, because a lot of the music that we were listening to didn't have subharmonic bass yet. It was just the harder the drums and the richer the bass, you know, it makes you feel these things. You don't really have that. So I'm still trapped in the 90s. I mean, I don't even imagine making music with sub bass in my life. It's music that I like to play because it's really fun to play music for people in clubs. Like we were discussing, sub bass is not that, it's not that common. It's now common, but to have your entire spine rattled by a sound is really kind of new. And in the 50s, they had these experimental music makers who, you know, had the wall of wires and knobs that you see, the modular synth and experimental sound, and they would make these deep bass tones that would shake and break mirrors and shake furniture off the table and, you know, all kinds of stuff like that. But it was an accident in a way, and you couldn't harness it. And now we can. And that's that, like, advent of so much of this crazy bass music that we hear now is we've harnessed the subharmonic frequencies, and under all of it, there can be another tone driving the song, and you won't even hear that in your earbuds. It's just not gonna make it. Some of our greatest producer friends from the UK, the bass lines aren't audible without a sub, and so, you know, it's the type of thing where it's meant for the club. Going back to my music, I've never intended it for that. I've always intended it to create a narrative and some kind of journey to take you away from reality or help you cope with reality. But either way, it makes you instantly feel and like register. It's not just background music, but it's also not in your face. That's the goal.
Yeah. So before we open it up, in a moment we're going to open it up to some questions, but I was curious, in the music we've heard and what you've heard from each other, are there any questions that you'd like to ask each other, or any kind of comments about this kind of, either the aesthetic or the intention or even the tools of the trade to make this stuff? Anything you guys are curious about?
I'm still interested in that blending the synths with the brass and the strings. That's something that I'm really trying to get. I've never been a producer. I've always been a DJ who makes beats, and with the help of talented Angelinos, I've been able to make songs. And I'm really interested in getting that perfect mix. Like the new Radiohead record is so beautifully mixed, and Johnny Greenwood's arrangements are so lush, and he mixes that synth sound with the strings and the brass, and only the really trained ears can pick out where they're coming from, and that's the shit that gives me goosebumps every time. So for a question for you guys, like years of putting live instruments over hard, fat, club-worthy drum breaks, like engineering-wise, do you think like you need to be good at engineering, or is it more about the combination of instruments that gets the goosebumps flowing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like it is the combination of all that, and what we've learned to become better producers through experimentation on big systems. We both came from live music backgrounds and turned into producers later, and bass frequency is a whole world, and like you really gotta start understanding how subs and kicks work together if you want to create this kind of stuff. Because when we first started doing it, you listen to our first record, it's just like
we didn't have a sub, and we were like making shit, and like I listen to that sometimes, and I just feel like
it has its own sound, and I think that. And that's the part of raw.
Yeah, that
bass
sound
music.
is like the warble thing that happens because frequencies down low, they create a rhythm actually, and it's actually super cool if you're going for that. If you're not, it's actually pretty troublesome when you are open up for Bass Nectar and you're like, listen to all these subs. Wow, this is really cool. You know, they got like 30 subs, and you hit play, and you're like, oh shit. You know, so it's kind of out of necessity, but you know, I think like David said, we come from the live music world, you know, and like for me personally, I played drums for 35 years and been in so many different kinds of bands and studied music. And when I went to music school, there was the electronic music class that I took was like general MIDI. You can hit a note on a keyboard and it plays over there, and you're like, holy shit.
You had the big wall that Will was talking about, with the wires hanging down.
And that
You're
was
not
the
that
thing.
old, come on.
But that's the thing. Like you gotta understand that I had to go through that to understand this stuff. You know, I didn't have to, but I did. And like when you get in there, it's like, okay, this sound needs to stand out. What are the principles of the sound? You just gotta do the same work that you do, you know, analyzing if you want to try. Yeah.
Right. We finally learned how to sidechain, basically, is what it comes down to.
Side chaining.
And then pick your bass. Like, if you want your kick to be in control, or do you want your sub-synth to be in control? And pick your battles in bass world.
And what about for you, Vaughn? Because you're touring, you're busy reaching people, and you're DJing primarily dance events, like dance forward kind of happenings.
Yeah, actually, I mean, right now I'm technically an open format DJ because I'm just a full-time DJ, and I kind of have my hands in everything because I love so many different genres of music. Yeah. But I do throw my own event here in LA every fourth Wednesday, and the theme of that night is it's tropical R&B. So we'll take like cumbia edits and then throw like R&B vocal acapellas over them. We'll take dance hall beats, and it's just the same. We'll go back and forth between like cumbia, dance hall, dembo, baile funk, just all these really tropical rhythms, and then just add some beautiful R&B vocals. Or there's already so many dope remixes already doing that, and we can just play them at our party. And
is there a sound that you feel more than another kind of cuts across dance floors and across kind of international lines? Like, you know, if you're playing something in Bombay or you're playing it in Tokyo or Mexico City, it's gonna work. Is there something you've come across that has that kind of power? Or that? Honestly,
in my experience, hip hop is always a safe bet no matter where in the world you are. Like I've played in Korea, I've played in Malaysia, I've been to the UK, Mexico City, like, and if you could be playing like a full on, like, I don't know, like a full on cumbia set, but then the minute you drop a hip hop track or sample into like the mix, it's just like everyone can kind of relate to it because hip hop is so worldwide. Like it's on YouTube and like music videos and rap artists and hip hop artists are just everywhere. So people can like sing along to the chorus or whatever. And I think that kind of makes that connection worldwide.
So you haven't run into, what is this hip hop you
No,
speak
not
of?